Okay, let's talk about last night, the French elections, the first round of voting. Macron and Le Pen are now in the final two, the final stage of this election. It's going to be quite interesting. Now, the establishment are trying their best, do everything they can to keep Macron in power, and that includes the global mainstream media, including the British media. So, we're going to talk about that. Let's first start by talking about Channel 4's Andrew Neil. Yes. Andrew Neil, you remember he used to be relatively sound to an extent. Now he's come out to write an article about Le Pen to warn the French voters and the Brits, because, he has a platform, to say that I know many, including Brits, want Macron to lose because, he's been annoying. But Marine Le Pen could bring even more chaos than Trump. Really? That implies that we had 4 years of chaos under Trump, the same presidency that brought stability to foreign policies in America, peace deals, trade agreements, reforming a lot of relationships, standing up to Iran, bringing back North Korea to the table. Yeah, that was chaos. Domestic politics, okay. Growing all the economy, jobs, and making sure that the inequality actually gets much better. No, they don't really care about any of that. Because from their perspective, it was just too edgy and too funny and too controversial with its tweets. So that's what they think. And what they're now doing, the whole mainstream media, including the British media, are using dirty tactics to undermine Le Pen's brand. Now, you could disagree with Le Pen's policies, and you could agree with some. I disagree with a lot of her policies. Domestic policies, there's a lot of them are protectionist and a big government and almost socialist lies. But you cannot simplify her brand. You know what they call her? Hard or far or whatever. Yeah, hard right. She's a nationalist, and that means that as a package, part of her policies could be left wing, part could be right wing. It's essentially populist nationalist. But look at GB News, for example. GB News, as you can see down there, the label is there. It's always far or hard right, and it's not just GB News. We also had again Sky News. Sky News did the same thing, breaking news. Full far. It's so extreme. Okay. BBC, same thing. They're doing the same thing, but they don't use these simplified labels for any other candidates. Quite interesting, isn't it? Because the reason that they're doing this is to use it as an insult. Now, you don't have to be a fan of Le Pen to defend her in this, because it's not fair to simplify a brand. For example, as I said, a lot of her domestic politics are also left-wing as well as right-wing. You have her base, her members came from some of them former socialists and some former conservatives. You have her voters, a lot come from the left behind, from the working class, from, again, left and right, and some who were former Macron voters, former centrist voters. Now, if you say, okay, well, we're talking about her immigration policies. Well, you try to have control immigration, as opposed to Macron, who said during the campaign, Macron said he wants to shut down immigration for what, 5 years, something like that. That's not extreme. She didn't even say that. So I don't understand what they're trying to say in terms of there's a difference between being protectionist and nationalist and being some sort of hard right. What does that mean? What are you trying to say? Because nationalism is not necessarily right wing in that sense these days. You could also come from the left, because nationalism is just nationalism. It's not an ideology in that sense. So it's not like capitalism versus socialism. You can be from either side. Populism, the same thing. Populism is not an ideology; it's a strategy. It's part of who you are as a politician, for example. You can have a right wing populist. You can have a left wing populist. But she is essentially anti-establishment, and the best way to bring down anti-establishment using mainstream media is to undermine the brand and to simplify it and to basically label her things. It's just dangerous, and we have to actually stand up against it, because yes, we know that the second round Macron is likely to actually win, because all the other mainstream media, mainstream parties, from the actual really left-wing candidates to the so-called conservative Republican candidates, and everybody are endorsing Macron because they are scared of Le Pen's shake-up. And this is the real scandal, and the mainstream media are essentially falling for it. We're going to come back with more news updates for you guys throughout the day. I'm Tousi, and we are the media.